When the Ryder Cup turns up the volume, single swings become folklore. These are the shots, putts, wedges, irons, miracles that bent momentum, rewrote psychology, and made otherwise sensible people shout at televisions. They're the moments that compress a week into one swing, where a ball in the air seems to carry an entire team's heartbeat and an entire continent's hopes. 10. Jordan Spieth's cliffside physics experiment. Whistling Straits, 2021. On the par 3 17th, Spieth's tee shot missed left and tumbled into one of Whistling Straits' nastiest collection areas, leaving him with what looked like a hopeless stance. Ball well below his feet, shoulders tilted toward Lake Michigan, the green perched high above. Most players would have taken their medicine and hacked it back safely. Instead, Spieth launched a moonshot flop that climbed into the clouds, landed soft, and somehow finished makeable, before he sprinted downhill like a cartoon skier to avoid Lake Michigan. The US didn't even win the hole, which is part of the magic. Greatness isn't always about the scoreboard, it's about audacity under a microscope. In a week the US dominated, this was the highlight that summed up their confidence. Try the impossible, make it look inevitable, worry about gravity later. The camera angles barely captured the slope. The roar did the rest, a reminder that risk and theater often travel together. 9. Jon Rahm's Eagle Steal on 18, Marco Simone, 2023. When Europe needed a surge on the opening day in Rome, Jon Rahm supplied a bolt of lightning. He had already jolted the crowd with a hole-out chip for Eagle on the par 4 16th. But when his 4-ball match with Scottie Scheffler and Brooks Koepka reached the par 5 18th, Europe still trailed. Standing over a long, curling eagle putt, Rahm knew only perfection would salvage half a point. With the grand amphitheater of Marco Simone rising around him, he poured it in from 33 feet, sending the ball on a left-to-right arc that dropped with emphatic finality and snatched a half from the US super pair. It was the perfect Ryder Cup cocktail: nerve, touch, and an absolutely ruthless sense of timing. The putt didn't just have a match, it broadcast a message across Rome. Europe would squeeze every last point from the closing stretch. Momentum wobbled, the crowd surged, and Rahm's face told you everything. Belief is a skill, and he practices it daily. 8. Paul Casey's match-ending ace, the K Club, 2006. Hole-in-ones are rare. Match-ending hole-in-ones, they belong to folklore. On the par 3 14th at the K Club, Paul Casey reached for an iron and produced a swing that felt inevitable the instant the ball left the face. It never wavered, arrowing straight at the flag before vanishing into the cup. No need for a tap-in, no nervous handshake, just stunned silence turning into a roar and a partner briefly unsure how to celebrate history. The shot encapsulated Europe's dominance that week. On a course demanding precision, they delivered it in excess, and Casey's ace was the purest expression of that control. The match was simply over, a contest reduced to a memory in a single swing. What lingers isn't only the number on the card, but the theater. A hole transformed from opportunity into exclamation point, proof that sometimes the Ryder Cup script is written in perfection. 7. Patrick Reed answers Rory. Roars included Hazeltine, 2016. Hazeltine's 8th green became a boxing ring. Rory McIlroy had just drained a monster putt, shouting and chest pumping as the crowd exploded around him. It felt like a knockout blow. Then Patrick Reed stepped up, faced with a putt nearly as long, and refused to blink. He rolled it dead center, marched after it, and wagged his finger at Rory in a gesture that instantly joined Ryder Cup mythology. The exchange was more than 2 putts. It was theater within theater, a duel inside a duel. Reed's make silenced the Northern Irishman's celebration, fed the American galleries, and announced that the match wasn't shifting an inch. Every Ryder Cup has its signature confrontation. This was Hazeltine's, a moment when noise, pride, and raw adrenaline collided. Reed's counterpunch embodied the week itself. Brash, combative, irresistible. Sometimes the best answer isn't a speech, but a ball rolling straight into the middle. 6. Jamie Donaldson's laser to kick-in range. Gleneagles, 2014. Every golfer dreams of clinching the Ryder Cup, but at Gleneagles, Jamie Donaldson did it on the par 4 15th. From the fairway, facing Keegan Bradley in Sunday singles, Donaldson knew Europe needed just half a point more to seal the cup. He pulled his wedge, set his stance, and delivered a strike so pure it felt preordained. The ball flew high, landed softly, and stopped inside 3 feet. Kick-in range. Before Donaldson even reached the green, Bradley removed his cap and extended his hand. Match over, cup over, chaos unleashed. It was the most ruthless way to end a contest. One swing, one answer, no room for negotiation. For a European team that had controlled the week, Donaldson's dart was the perfect exclamation mark. Clinical, stylish, and final. The shot distilled match play to its essence. Hit something so precise, so undeniable, that debate ceases on impact. The wedge spoke. The cup followed. What's your favorite Ryder Cup clinching shot? Let us know in the comments. 5. Justin Rose from downtown on 17, Medinah 2012. Medinah was already simmering when Justin Rose walked onto the 17th green. One down to Phil Mickelson in Sunday singles. Facing a putt so long it looked designed for survival, Rose treated it like a formality. He sent the ball tracking with perfect pace, and when it toppled into the cup, the roar bent the air. Momentum flipped in an instant. Rose wasn't finished. On the 18th, he stiffed an iron and holed the birdie to complete the comeback, stealing a full point from one of America's icons. In a Ryder Cup built on dozens of small miracles, this was the one that felt like a hinge. The exact moment an individual narrative turned inside out. The read, the touch, the defiance, it was resistance made visible. Mickelson's reaction, a gracious thumbs up, summed it up best. Sometimes the only way to answer larceny is to applaud the thief. 4. Lanny Wadkins wedge to a tap-in. PGA National, 1983. Dusk was falling at PGA National, and the entire Ryder Cup was tilting on a single swing. The United States needed at least a half point to keep the cup, and Lanny Wadkins, renowned for his swagger under pressure, stood in the fairway of the 18th. His opponent, Jose Maria Cañizares, faced a par try from the edge of the green. Wadkins pulled wedge and delivered one of the most precise approaches in Ryder Cup history. High, crisp, spinning hard, and finishing inches from the flag. The crowd erupted as he tapped in, securing the half that preserved America's 14.5 to 13.5 victory. Europe had announced themselves that week, fighting to within a point, but Wadkins' dart was the defiant stroke that kept the balance tilted toward the US. For all the tension and theater, the moment is remembered as a routine tap-in. That's the mark of greatness, transforming the impossible into something that feels inevitable. 3. Justin Leonard's 45-footer. Brookline, 1999. It started on the other side of Boston and somehow finished in the middle of the hole. On the 17th at Brookline, the U.S. comeback from 4 points down was teetering between miracle and mirage. Justin Leonard stood over a putt so long it felt more like a prayer, 45 feet across a green tilting every which way. The ball climbed the ridge, broke left, then right, before toppling into the cup as if pulled by magnet. The eruption was instant and uncontainable, teammates, caddies, even officials pouring onto the green in a wave of euphoria. The celebration spilled over, eclipsing the moment's etiquette and sparking years of debate. But the putt itself remains untouchable. It was the ignition point of America's rally from 10 to 6 down, the exact second that belief became destiny. Match play thrives on audacity, and Leonard's stroke was audacity in its purest form. A long shot made real, with a soundtrack loud enough to echo through Ryder Cup history. And if you're enjoying this Ryder Cup deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe. 2. Seve Ballesteros' 3-wood from a bunker. PGA National, 1983. The setting was brutal. PGA National's 18th hole, water-waiting, Europe-chasing history. Seve Ballesteros found a fairway bunker, more than 240 yards from the flag. Most players would have wedged out, but Seve wasn't most players. He pulled 3-wood, because of course he did, and unleashed a strike that bent logic. The ball launched low, rose with improbable carry, then bounded onto the green, chasing toward the target as if scripted. The galleries gasped, then roared. It didn't clinch the Ryder Cup. Europe would fall just a point short. But it crystallized what Seve was all about. He turned imagination into weaponry, risk into inevitability. In that one swing, Europe's posture changed. They could go toe-to-toe with America and win style points while doing it. Decades later, the tale still grows in the telling, the carry stretching further with each retelling. Seve's genius wasn't just remembered, it was mythologized in real time. 1. Christy O'Connor Jr.'s towering 2-iron. The Belfry, 1989. The Ryder Cup was balanced on a knife edge at the Belfry. Europe, defending champions, needed every scrap to hold on. Christy O'Connor Jr., all square with Fred Couples on the 18th, faced a decision most would shrink from. couples had a short iron in hand. O'Connor from farther back reached for a 2-iron, a club that terrifies amateurs and pros alike. He set, swung, and produced a tracer that soared through the Midland sky, pierced the wind, and landed inside 5 feet. The shot won him the hole, the match, and effectively the cup, which Europe retained via a 14-all tie. It was more than precision. It was nerve distilled into steel. The 2-iron carried the subtext of an era: Europe's defiance, their appetite for pressure, and their ability to meet America, blow for blow. If you want to explain the Ryder Cup to someone, show them this swing and watch their jaw drop. Great Ryder Cup shots don't just travel through the air, they travel through time. A perfect line, a fearless read, one outrageous idea with a clean strike, and suddenly an entire week tilts. That's the alchemy. One swing, many hearts, and a scoreboard that can't argue. And every now and then, the replay is so good you forget to breathe until the ball stops. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more great golfing content.